Hello ladies and gentlemen, Captain Shack here and welcome to Space Engineers. In this video, myself, Captain Shack, commanding the Liberation, went up against the Separatist droid commander Morphologist. Now I wasn't alone, I just finished actually recording this, as I'm recording this intro, over on Twitch, and we got a full server of pilots to join us for each of our battle groups. As you can see in the video, we've got a collection of BTL Y-Wings, classic Y-Wings from the Clone Wars. They've actually got working ion cannons. I don't know how long they were alive or how many people actually decided to be gunners in this battle, but the ion cannons are supposed to actually take out random subsystems. So we have a full wing squadrons of fighters. We've got the V-Wings in our ship, our interceptors, and then on the other side, the droid side, we actually had hyena bombers and the vulture droids, which you'll see running through here as they start making strafing runs on our capital ships. It was pretty amazing. Now, this was mostly just to kind of balance things out. We're using a collection of mods, the Armco Weapons mod, which you're seeing there. The blasters, these are actually blasters from a CR90 because we don't have Clone Wars era tech yet for the Armco Star Wars collection, but it's getting there. Now, we decided to use the Skin Shield mods because the Bubble Shield mod that everybody's pretty familiar with, well, if you're flying fighters around it, you can kind of just crash into it. You can't skim the surface of the craft. It's good for things like the Mon Calamari ships if you're doing Rebel versus Empire battles, but for this, we found it would be better to just use the bubble shields for the Y-Wings, which we eventually removed for our second battle. Look at that friggin' bomber right there. That's a hyena bomber chasing right behind. And we did have to make them crewed, so they're not actually using them as remote drones. They're in a cockpit. We're using the A-Wing cockpit because we don't have a cockpit for droids yet either. Hopefully sometime soon. Oh man. We had 16 players though, and it ran great between, like you just saw that strafing run. I started to chew through Morphologist's shields, actually trying to position the Liberation underneath them. And for the first run, he decided that he would just kind of sit still. So I ordered all Y-Wings to engage his engines to make sure he sat there. We had a couple of bombers and hyenas ram us. That's actually a few that get stuck in both battles. They get like lodged into my command structure. But the look of a battle like this from the command pit is absolutely amazing. Like watching torpedoes come and hit the hull, and you can even hear them if you listen closely, knocking against the hull and like echoing through the ship. Now, one of the issues that I ran into with the Liberation, there goes a hyena actually running into the side of the ship. The skin shield is actually doing quite well. We do have equal shields, by the way. But because of my positioning, I've got all 8 cannons firing at him this entire time, so I'm starting to chew through his shields, which, as I said, way too many of them. Preparing to launch all fighters, get everybody ready. As pilots died in combat, their role was to respawn inside the ship, probably at the hangar bay, because we had 2 spawn points on board, and get ready, and then get inside the ship, hold position, and then I would command all fighters, launch, and they'd be able to actually go. But I'd have to make sure the ship was stopped so they had a chance to get away. It worked out pretty well. Eventually, we did manage to take down in the first battle, Morph not allowing me to have this victory without trying to take me out, but once again, we had tons of shields. We held out pretty well. Oh man, it was so good though. So there we go, there's the first battle. We managed to win, knocking out most of the fighters. They had a few leftovers. They were supposed to have more than us, and I believe they did have at least another wing, extra wing, than us, so they'd have better respawns because we had shields, so we figured, okay, well, let's give them a little bit more in the way of numbers. I don't know if it ended up working out that way because the Y-Wings ended up being so powerful in the first battle. So to fix this, I actually went back and took all the shields off the Y-Wings and went back and okay, that's too much. Put the skin shields on the Y-Wings. There we go, triumphantly leaving with our 2 Y-Wings that survived the battle out of the 5. Only 2 managed to make it out alive. And I think we've lost half of our V-Wing squadron, so not too bad. But we took the bubble shields off and reincorporated the skin shields, and those worked out a bit better. They're super weak though, so what I think we're gonna do is we're gonna triple the Y-Wing shields for the next battle. That way they can sit there and they can tank it, because they're supposed to be tanky. Y-Wings are supposed to have way better shields than the rest of these fighters, just slow and not very maneuverable, which we nailed that part. I think it was Somber who said it's like flying his couch. Oh, well, perfect, we nailed the balance. At least in the maneuverability aspect, because those hyenas are quick and very maneuverable. Unless you're going max speed at a Liberation that's trying to bank, and you'll notice a lot of the hyenas are gonna get eaten. in this run, I took the shields off. Now we're using the skin shields, but not enough of them. The Y-Wings kind of get chewed apart, though we do see a bit of how tanky these ships are, even without shields. I think this is Somber flying with, oh, his back end is completely ripped off. He eventually loses, I think, his ion cannon, which is actually firing into the ship. That thing is supposed to randomly turn off ship systems as it flies by. I don't know if they managed to actually do that. Ooh, he's just getting torn apart. He flips it around, he turns off his inertial dampeners, and he actually starts firing back as he slides away, pulling kind of like a Battlestar Galactica maneuver there. And I think he even survives this battle, but I stopped watching, assuming he had lost control of his ship. Oh, come on. Because I think we'll see him a little bit later in another clip. Freaking awesome. So we've had a few casualties. The Y-Wings died a lot faster this time. So now it's time to get launched. But because I'm streaming this and I'm giving the commands over the stream, I ran into the issue of they would hear, open all hangar bays, launch, and as soon as they would hear that, there comes the strafing run. They'd start pouring rounds into the hangar bay if they could manage it. And here's the issue. I'm trying to close the bay doors. He gets knocked out. He gets bullseyed right into the cockpit. Because if you're not moving in a fighter, particularly a V-wing with no shields, you kind of get chewed apart. I mean, it is the predecessor to the TIE fighter, and they're not exactly known for their tank ability. So throughout this battle, I'm cycling between firing at the enemy capital ship, the Providence, and at this point, we've actually halved the number of shields that we've got on both sides, and even then, we found that the capital ships had way too much health. If you don't have constant fire from the squadrons and from the capital ship, you're not going to be able to pierce through those shields. But we managed to get a few more fighters launched, trying to close the bay doors, trying to rotate between my cannon selection on my hotbar right now, being on the command bridge. I can switch between firing at small ships and large ships. I'm trying to cycle them through, and there's our Y-Wing still alive with no shields and almost no maneuverability, and somehow the hyenas were unable to take him out. It was amazing. So I've decided, okay, if we're ever gonna win this, it's time to accelerate. And that, I think that was a hyena, that might have been a Volt, no, that was a hyena. They had the two sections, barely misses me. I start getting into firing range. I tried to use positioning, and I think that's something that Moore figured out toward the very last battle that we did today, is that positioning, I don't know if he passed through my command struts or not. I think he might have made it. But I was positioning to get both sets, so I had 8 of my guns. He has 8 too, but his are on the side, so he always has an angle to fire, whereas I have to be below him and facing toward him if I want to get all my cannons firing. So there's a bit of give and take there, but he kind of stayed still quite a bit. I think he was constantly trying to let his extra fighters be launched all the time, and that screwed him over. So we're gonna move into position here. I'm now I have almost a full squadron ready. I have a couple of survivors left still fighting out there, but for the most part, my wing of pilots have respawned. They're inside, but I know if I open the hangar bays, particularly the large one that runs down the center length of the Venator, they're right there. I've got a hyena literally chasing me around and shooting into the bridge, trying to cover my perspective. If I open those bay doors, they're gonna rush in and kill everything on the inside. And that was kind of the fun of using the skin shield that I didn't think about. It turns into this whole strategy of like, when do you open your bay doors? Okay, I've got everybody saying X. That means they're ready to go. They're ready to launch. They've respawned. They've gotten into their craft. We had to like hammer in. Don't make sure you turn on your inertial dampeners. Don't detach your ship until we're completely to a full stop, or you're gonna go right into a wall. And even then, full stopped, I think half the pilots bounced their way off the walls to get out of the ship. It was ridiculous. The fire going on above as the enemy fighters are trying to catch them. Running these fighters with no shields, I think, was the best idea. Only the really horrifically hard to maneuver Y-Wings are the ones that should have shields. I do think I need to give their bombers something a little bit more impactful, or maybe more bombs. They only had about 14 per, and they were using just normal rocket launchers. They weren't using anything modded. I did run into a few crashing issues with the tracking missiles before starting this battle, so I decided not to use those. The tracking missiles come with the Imperial Armco pack. They're actually really fun to use. They auto-lock and will chase enemy targets. They don't do as much damage as normal rockets that are in the game because they track. Idea being that the warhead wouldn't be as big because it's got like navigational software and hardware in there. But now I'm back to my old tactic, getting up underneath the Providence, laying rounds into them, and trying to break through his shields. And even with this, the shields halved to the point we're having trouble breaking through. At some point, we managed to do a little bit of damage, and you can see his shields are turning red, meaning he's well below half. I think he's down to like maybe 10-15% shields at this point, and I'm just pouring more and more fire into him, trying to break through. I don't remember if I actually managed to get all the way through or not at this point. Now I'm trying to move away again. I've got multiple hyenas chasing me. And I had this idea that, well, with my cannons and the angle of fire that I have, and I know these cannons have a really good arc, why don't I swing the nose up and get all my cannons to fire? And many of my crew have now taken over firing positions on those turrets, so they're just starting to pour rounds into them. At the same time, Morph suddenly loses control of his ship, and it ejects him into space. And you can see, now we've got this like high orbit fight over this small moon. Oh man, it's so ridiculous but so fun. I don't know what could have caused him to get thrown into the air. It might have been something to do with landing gear in all of those ships, but I'm trying to get these guys to launch out, and I don't realize that at this point, the battle has gone on for so long that the ships that hadn't been launched actually ran out of fuel because we had them idling in the ship. And the battle had gone on for at least like 15-20 minutes now of fighters launching and torpedoes running everywhere. But overall, this was just a stupid amount of fun over on Twitch. We're gonna do a lot more of these. We're kind of narrowing in the balance that we want. But at the end of the day, it was 2 for the Republic and 0 for the droids, as it should be. Alright guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, join the Republic because it's the proper faction. Don't be a droid. And I'll see you next time.